Craig Whitlock, The Afghanistan Papers, A Secret History of the War. Discover the untold story behind the United States invasion of Afghanistan and how the war that began in 2001 evolved into a quagmire without a clear endgame. The Afghanistan Papers, A Secret History of the War by Craig Whitlock offers insights into the decisions, miscalculations, and misperceptions that shaped one of the longest wars in American history. Learn about the early successes of the Bush administration and its subsequent ambivalence about nation-building, the Pentagon's struggle to define the enemy, the flawed strategy of the Obama administration's surge, and the eventual capitulation to negotiating a troop withdrawal during Trump's tenure.
Afghanistan War Strategy. After the September 11 terrorist attacks, the Bush administration ordered a successful invasion of Afghanistan, which crumbled the Taliban resistance, leading to minimal casualties. However, despite the promising start, there was no clear plan for ending the war. The administration was wary of Afghanistan's history and wanted to put as few troops as possible. The success soon turned into a quagmire as the U.S. didn't want to abandon the nation but feared sending too many troops would lead to blame for the country's troubles. The United States didn't want to pursue ambitious nation-building initially, but didn't want to waste the progress achieved after flushing the Taliban. Afghanistan, a war without end. The U.S. entered the war on terror without a clear understanding of the conflict, the culture, and the people they were fighting. Despite public statements that the war was won, private emails from officers revealed the Taliban and Al-Qaeda had only retreated. Two chances to end the conflict were missed, and the U.S. mishandled its treatment of the Taliban, treating them as terrorists and denying them a role in the post-war peace process. Many Afghans viewed the Taliban as a better choice than the foreign interlopers and their puppet regime in Kabul. The failure of nation-building in Afghanistan. The Bush administration spent $143 billion to rebuild Afghanistan, with the goal of establishing a centralized government like the U.S. However, Afghanistan's history of tribal governance made this a futile effort. Despite pointing to progress like road construction and voter registrations, many of the nation-building exercises were wasteful and ineffective. The United States pumped so much money into building projects that bureaucrats completely lost track of how much they were spending. America's misguided priorities in Afghanistan. The Bush administration's focus on Iraq instead of Afghanistan led to inadequate resources for building Afghan security forces. This contributed to the resurgence of the Taliban, which caught the U.S. off guard. The U.S. was then forced to scramble to train Afghan soldiers with little marksmanship or driving skills, leading to discipline issues and rampant illiteracy in the recruits. The Bush administration shifted its focus from Afghanistan to Iraq after falsely claiming victory in Afghanistan. This left American officers in Afghanistan struggling to build their forces, as the best officers and troops were redirected to Iraq. As a result, the mission in Afghanistan became hazier with the resurgence of the Taliban caught the U.S. off guard. When the U.S. realized its mistake, it scrambled to train Afghan soldiers without considering their lack of basic skills and discipline issues. This resulted in rampant illiteracy and innumeracy in the recruits. The book highlights how misguided priorities and inadequate resources can lead to unexpected consequences. Poor understanding of Afghanistan. American troops and diplomats lacked deep knowledge of Afghanistan's cultural and linguistic context. Most of them were trained in Iraq's customs and languages, which hindered their ability to understand the nuances of the country. Additionally, soldiers served for just 6 months to a year and then were replaced by inexperienced ones, leading to a limited understanding of Afghanistan. The diplomatic corps at the embassy followed a similar policy. As a result, there was a poor understanding of Afghanistan's history, religious customs, and tribal dynamics. The failure of U.S. policies in Afghanistan. As the Taliban and Al-Qaeda regrouped in 2003 and established their bases across the Pakistan border, the U.S. struggled to police the 1,500-mile frontier. The Pakistani general, Pervez Musharraf, received $10 billion in U.S. aid and publicly allied with Washington, but secretly supported the Taliban. The U.S. spent $9 billion on programs that failed to end the Afghan opium trade, which provides the raw material for the world's heroin. Despite bombing opium facilities and rolling over poppies with tractors, opium production nearly tripled, and poppy cultivation quadrupled between 2002 and 2017. The drug trade became an essential funding source for the insurgency. The AF-Pak border was impossible to seal off, and the U.S. paid the price for the failure of its policies in Afghanistan. The truth behind America's failure. The book exposes how American officials consistently lied to the public about the progress of the war in Afghanistan. It reveals how the military and diplomats put an optimistic spin on the doomed war effort to advance their careers. The book also details the unintended consequences of failed missions, such as creating more insurgents. The author exposes how dissembling became a norm in the Afghan conflict and how it contributed to America's failure to achieve its objectives in the region. Obama's mistake in Afghanistan. In 2009, President Barack Obama announced a new strategy for the war in Afghanistan, sending 30,000 troops with an 18-month deadline. However, the Taliban patiently waited out the surge and Obama's war strategy ultimately failed. Although the killing of Osama bin Laden in 2011 was a major victory for the U.S., Afghanistan remained unstable and corrupt. Donald Trump promised to win the war but ended up negotiating a troop withdrawal with the Taliban. Joe Biden followed through with Trump's plan and ordered a complete withdrawal of U.S. troops by September 11, 2021.
In The Afghanistan Papers, Craig Whitlock unveils a complicated tale of political and military dysfunctions that prolonged the war in Afghanistan for 20 years. The United States' inability to craft a clear exit strategy, coupled with miscommunication, ignorance of cultural nuances, and a lack of focus on the evolving nature of its enemies, led to a conflict that cost taxpayers billions of dollars and countless lives. This secret history of the war reveals the glaring discrepancies between public pronouncements and difficult realities on the ground, highlighting the need for transparency, accountability, and a deeper understanding of history and cultural context in future conflicts.